Hello and welcome back to Pandemic Playground with Dave. So today we have another experiment for you guys, and that is actually another too much of something, and that is going to be parachutes. Now in the past we've done experimenting with parachutes, and one was ejector seats, and the other was a parachute testing to see if it can stop a vehicle immediately. But today we're going to answer an age-old question: what is too much? Not really an age-old question, but we're just going to figure that out with parachutes today. So what I have here right this moment is a rather small version of what I'm going to be doing in a few minutes. And that is adding a bunch of parachutes to see if there's such thing as too much. But I think when we say too much in this kind of series that we've been talking about, is what is the breaking point of my PC or my machine, to be honest. Alright, so putting this thing together, I'm not even sure how much parachutes are in this one specifically, but I do know we're gonna have a decent amount here. And what I'm gonna set up is the auto deploy here. If you don't know how parachute hatches work, here's a quick simple tutorial if you need it. Basically, it needs to have a connection point into cargo for canvases. So basically you have your parachute hatch right here, and this design right in front of us is where it's going to hatch open and spit out the canvas or the parachute. The other part of it is the port, which is the bottom piece, so you always got to kind of maintain it this way on top of some kind of conveyor system like so. And if you put it on the sideways, of course, it's this way, right? Simple enough. Options is also simple for the most part. The parachute hatches, you can do it open, close. Anyone can use auto deploy and set your auto deploy height. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna do an auto deploy, maybe not 1,000, but we're gonna do, let's just say 150, and then hit auto deploy. Alright, so how I'm going to test this. So this is the initial test. It doesn't have too many parachutes. As you see here, it is probably, let's just take a quick count. We have 3 rows, so let's see here. 28 times 3, basically. So with quick calculations, meeting with the calculator, it is 84 parachute hatches on this guy here. Right, so jumping in here, we have our number 1 tool key is to release this hatch or this small rotor head, and we're gonna just do that right about now. So in 3, 2, 1, release. We're gonna do a bit of a free fall and see what this kind of looks like if it deploys in time. Let's see, 84 parachutes look like that. It looks like a blimp, so that's a just thing design if you want to kind of take a look here. So 84 parachutes. It's not going to slow it down as much. It's going to slow it down much faster than having one based on weight, I think. But at the speed it drops, I don't think it's going to really change with many parachutes or a number of parachutes. So 84 is our simple small grid test or small test of parachutes. And look at the design of the parachute when you do put 84 of them. So imagine that what that's going to look like when we put a lot more. Right, so as you saw, 84 parachutes, no issues, no lag, nothing crazy going on. But now we jump into the bigger build. So this was actually my initial build, not the small one, to be honest. I started big. I started with 3,250 of them right here, all lined up. And what I've noticed is an interesting piece to this is the graphical look of it. You see there's a bit of a like a half circle or quarter circle on the design of the parachute hatches. And then when we get closer, it just changes a bit. And it looks like that's from the sun also. But you see how it kind of follows with that shading. That's pretty interesting with this pattern of hatches. And another thing is that it does glitch out just like the thrusters that we did in the previous experiment, where it does kind of pop in and out here and there. So now 3,250 hatches on this thing. And honestly, I would need a lot more cargo containers to get it all the canvas in there to launch this. But I'm in creative mode, so it just able to launch it without the parachute or without the canvas. But for the time being, I did put a little bit of canvas in here, but it isn't 3,250 as you see here. It's only 421 per medium cargo container or for the small grid. Now that doesn't really help out, but being creative, it does help out. Alright, so we're gonna test this in 3, 2, 1. Release. And this here, you see see how it glitches out in the hatches? So that's the weirdest part of it. And let's look at the design of how the parachutes launch. Look at that. It looks like a big old square at first. And now the patterns kind of collide a little bit. Not sure why we're leaning more heavy on one side when everything's built equally, but that looks insane. So our parachute design here, it's kind of same as before because it's just kind of leaning forward that way. But before it did that, it was interesting how it was a big old square. But 3,250 parachutes, not really an issue here. So slowly falling down as you see here. And that just looks insane with the parachutes. 3,250 parachutes. Look at the design of that parachute now. With all the strings, all this craziness that's on here. And the craziest part is, I think when it drops, when it hits the ground, it does some kind of crazy looking maneuver too. And I feel like it is slowing down. Whoop, here it goes. So they're hitting the ground now. Whoop, whoop, and it is okay. This thing didn't fall correctly, so it's gonna end up falling back down a little bit more this way. But that's interesting that it's falling this way. It wasn't in my initial test. It didn't kind of do this, but look at it. Look at the pattern now up here. Oh, there you go. So now that it's landed, it's trying to get rid of all the parachutes, and now it's all gone. All right, there you go. So that's what happens when you put 3,000 parachute hatches. It creates an interesting design in the parachute. It drops extremely slow. I think it doesn't slow it down as much as if you would have to have one parachute hatch with something small. I think it's about the same speed. I'm not really going to test it. I'm going to just leave it as is. But let's jump into a larger version of that. Alright, so here is our monstrosity of hatches. So this here is built out of the same 3,250, but times it by 6. And that number gives us 19,500 parachute hatches on this crazy looking thing here. So honestly, this thing took a long time to build because I was blueprinting it and pasting it on to the sides of here. So every time I pasted it on the sides, it took forever to load for whatever reasons, because I mean, well, it is a lot of parts and materials and things like that. So it's all 6 of the same platform, and just changing the auto deploy would take forever as well. Well, not take forever, but a good amount of time to load up all the hatches, as you see here. And if I want to change the number, let's just say to 80, hit OK, it takes the time to kind of like fix itself. But yeah, 19,500 parachute hatches. What is it gonna do to my machine, basically? Let's test that out in 3, 2, 1. Release. Alright, so it does the same thing with that random looking glitch with the parachute hatches. It's kind of glitching out, as you see there. But the pattern of it when it auto deploys is going to be quite interesting, I believe. So should do that in now. Look at that. Oh, look at that design right there. It looks like it opened up from the middle section and branched out to the sides. And that might be because it was grabbing a canvas from the middle and then spread it out throughout. And actually, no, that's not true, because each one has a cargo container in the middle of each section. So that's interesting how it decided to do that. But look at that there. Yep, so 19,000 500, it is significantly slowing down performance here. And this is insane looking. It's a wall of parachutes basically. Look at the design here of the parachutes all bunched together. And now it's about to, I think it hit the ground already. So it's gonna probably get rid of the parachutes once it fully hits the ground, the whole platform. But I am taking a significant performance hit right now with 19,500 parachute hatches or parachutes being launched. So it is gonna take some time for it to land apparently. But that just looks insane. All those strings and rope or whatever with the parachute hatches. I mean with the parachute tops. Look at that design. It matches the hatches right now. And then here goes. It's gonna reduce itself. Well, it goes on the ground. And then snap off, I think, right? It snap off soon. There we go. It snaps off. And then my performance kind of comes back to normal. A little bit. But that was interesting how most of it started right here in the middle. Most of the parachutes decided to open up right here in the middle. Right here. And then it just ballooned out from the sides until all of them opened up. So that was an interesting design when you have that many parachutes. If I were to add a lot more, my machine, well, if I double this up, I think my machine can handle it. But it'll be super, super slow when it comes down. So that kind of speed is going to take, well, when it comes down like that and it lags, it's going to take a good few minutes to really land. But at least we know what happens if you put too many parachute hatches and release them to hit the ground. But of course, in terms of the experiment, is there such thing as too many parachutes? No, not really. You could kind of put as much as you want. Is it going to really do anything? Not really as well. So it is pointless, but it was a fun little experiment to try out to see what happens when you throw a whole bunch of parachute hatches here and see what comes out of it. And the one thing that was interesting is the way it opened up to me, at least to me, because it opened up from the middle and then spread it throughout. But the design of the parachute with that many is just mind-boggling. It just looked crazy looking, which was very interesting. Alright, so that's it for today's experiment. If you want me to try out other experiments for having too many of something, feel free to drop a comment down below. I'll check it out. Hopefully it's interesting. But with that said, of course, hit that thumbs up, like the video. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button down below. Drop a comment down or two below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.